So we've just talked about this equation, and you've tried to solve it now, and we are going to be looking at a strategy and kind of a different way to think about it. So the way I want us to be thinking about this is the story of X. I would like for you to be thinking about how X was taken and what was done to it, and using order of operations we can see what happened to it first. So if I look at my X, the first thing that happens to my X is that we are adding 7. And I'm just looking at order of operations starting with where X is, and the first thing that happens is I add 7. The next thing that we're doing is we are multiplying this by 2. And as we continue, the last operation that happens to X on the left side of the equation is that we subtract 8. And I'm just recording these things that we are doing because we can use this as a strategy on how to solve the equation. So, I'm going to rewrite this equation here. 2 times x plus 7 minus 8 equals 0. So what we're going to do is actually use these operations that we did, except instead of going this direction, we're going to go in this direction, and we're going to undo the operations as we go. And so, for instance, in order to undo subtracting 8, we're going to add 8 to the equation. So you can see here that we are going to add 8 to both sides. I also want to put a line. Some of you might be more comfortable when you kind of see the line splitting the equation. And so we're going to add 8 to each side. Now, I think a lot of you have probably learned that that's going to cancel this part out, but I even want to talk about why it cancels out. The reason is if I take negative 8 plus 8, the answer to that is 0, right? And so if I am adding 0 on the left side, it's like I'm doing nothing. And so we can mark that out. It gets rid of it. And that leaves us with 2 times x plus 7 on the left side equals 8 on the right side. Now, at this point, I actually would like to take this equation and we're going to split it into 2 parts because I believe it's entirely possible that some of you solve this in a different way than kind of what we're doing. So I want to show you 2 different ways to solve this. The first way is I want to continue with this whole undoing thing. So for instance, this would be the next step because I'm going that direction. So the way that I would undo multiplying by 2 is to divide by 2 on both sides. So we are going to divide by 2. Now I know for a lot of people, as soon as I draw that as a fraction line, please understand that every fraction is really just a division problem. And what's happening here is I'm taking this part, and this is the reason I'm doing this, is I'm actually going to do 2 divided by 2. And 2 divided by 2 is simply 1, which is why I can get rid of this. Because if I took 1 times anything, I get anything. Which leaves us with x plus 7 equals 4. If I continue to undo what I've done before, we get to the plus 7, and to undo that we would subtract 7, right? And so we're going to subtract 7 on both sides. We get x equals negative 3. Now, the reason I put 2 equations here is I think it's really, really likely that people used distribution or the distributive property here instead of doing this undo way. And I want you to understand, there is nothing wrong at all with distributing this. It's a completely valid way to solve this problem. And if you did it, it's totally fine, okay? So I'm going to distribute the 2 to the x and to the 7. So I get 2 times x, which is 2x. 2 times 7, which is 14, which is 8. Now, the thing I do want to point out is this whole undoing thing that I was trying to focus on over here. I'm kind of away from that now. Now I'm just using my normal properties to solve an equation. Totally fine. So the next step is I'm trying to get x eventually by itself. So the next thing we're going to do is subtract 14. Remember that we do that because when I subtract 14 here on the left side, it's 14 minus 14, which is 0, which gets rid of it completely, which is why we do it. This gives us 2x equals negative 6. And then the last step, this is 2 times x, right? So we're going to divide each side by 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, and you will notice that we get the same answer regardless, okay? Now, the other thing, and I think this is a good habit, especially since it's been so long since we've had normal school, is we have an answer here, right? And we have the ability to now check to see if that answer is correct. So I am going to rewrite the original equation. But as I do that, since I got negative 3, I want to see if that's correct. And so I am going to plug in negative 3 for x. And I am going to hope that that gives us the correct answer. So here I'm just going to follow my order of operations. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4. So I get 2 times 4 minus 8 equals 0. And I'm just checking to see that this is true. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. X equals negative 3 is absolutely the correct answer. So, hope that helps, and we'll continue on from there. Thanks so much.